doing, good people? This is Dave Bit Animal. Alright, so Tetris. Everybody knows about Tetris. Everybody and their grandma has played Tetris over the years. But what you may not know is how Tetris came to end up on the NES. Well, to know that, you have to go back a little bit further. To 1984, to be exact. So, in 84, in the Soviet Union, you had a Russian computer engineer named Alexei Pajitnov. Alexei Pajitnov used to love playing this board game called Tetris. Well, basically, you had this little rectangle, and you fit these different geometric shapes in there in an effort to fill up the rectangle without leaving any open spaces. So, Pajitnov seeks out some of his programmer friends, and they create a computer game based on this concept. Now, it became popular. It was ported all over the world, a number of different consoles, and the Soviet government set up a company to market this game. And like I said, it popped up everywhere. Now, fast forward to 1988. By 1988, about 6 or 7 companies had home computer rights and console rights to Tetris. But nobody had arcade rights. So, Elorg, the Russian company that was set up to market Tetris out to the masses, they sold the rights for the arcade version of Tetris to Atari Games. Meanwhile, they sold North American console and handheld game rights to Nintendo. Atari makes this arcade version of Tetris, and their arcade version of Tetris is quite good. And so they decide, okay, we're going to pass this to our home counterpart, or our home console division, Tengen, and allow them to make a home port of this game for the Nintendo Entertainment System. Now, at this point, Tengen was making games for the NES without a license. They had ported a couple Master System games like Shinobi and Phantasy Star, a couple Namco arcade games like Rolling Thunder, some Atari games like Road Runner, Skull and Crossbones, stuff like that. RBI Baseball. Well, Nintendo never really paid attention to them until they did this. Nintendo sees that Tengen has started to sell this unauthorized version of Tetris for their console in North America. Nintendo sues Tengen and attempts to get a cease and desist. They got it. It was tied up in litigation. The Tengen wasn't allowed to put any more copies of Tetris into circulation, their version of Tetris into circulation. Nintendo was. We get this. Now this, as fun as this is, it's actually inferior to what Tengen put out. Mainly because this version lacks a 2-player mode. The Tengen version had a versus mode where you could play against the computer or you could play against another player. This is just you. Just you. Competing against your mind. And it was fun. I mean, they also bundled it with every Game Boy that came out when the first run of the Game Boy released. And let's be real, it sold the system. But Didn't you always feel like something was missing from this version of Tetris? Didn't you always want to compete against somebody while playing Tetris? I mean, you can get a copy of Tengen Tetris now. It'll cost you at minimum like $55. But this version, you can get this version for about $9 at most. If you buy it, you spend any more than that on it, you're tripping. I say all that to say that this happened more than once in the game industry in this time frame. I mean, Double Dragon is a great example of that. And we'll talk about Double Dragon later this week. But this might have been the most amazing legal dispute in the history of gaming that a lot of gamers don't know about. And the story behind this is so interesting. It's almost scary. This has been the 8-Bit Animal. I'll catch you guys tomorrow.